Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! This story takes place back in 2016. A few things you should know are that in my country, you must join the military after turning 18 at the end of high school or after finishing your university studies. You will then be required to serve for 9 to 12 months, in some special cases even less. Naturally, I decided to enlist after my university studies at the age of 25. It was a bittersweet experience cause of bullying, and the bullies are the target of this revenge story. And cause I met my now wife. That's a story for another time. Don't get your hopes up. Basic training was great. I got to know great people and we had fun while we were trained for 30 days together. After basic training, we were sent to our units in different cities. I ended up at a pretty decent unit, but as in every basket of perfectly good apples, there may be a few rotten ones among them. In my case, this went for a few fellow soldiers and superiors. In the military, there are official ranks, but there is also the unofficial rank among soldiers of old-timer. It's as far from a rough translation I can make it. Basically, the more time you spend as a soldier, the more your status is elevated. In status, I mean that the older soldiers can pick better chores, better hours of guard duty, slack off, and so on. The newer you are, the more things you'll have to do. It's an ironclad rule. Honestly, I can understand that since they have been there longer than the new guys. They have more privileges. Unfortunately, some people let it get over their heads and think they are rules or something. Anyway, my first 2 months in a unit could be considered hellish bullying-wise, as they give me all the chores, wouldn't respect my effort of cleaning and tidying up the outpost, and they'd hurl abuses cause I was overweight. They were demeaning jerks. In case you wonder, it's not in my nature to be confrontational. I had a tendency of suppressing my feelings and binge eating as a result. Thus, the extra weight. And I am idiotically patient. Also, even if I talk to the superiors, they will give them a slap on the wrist and I will be in a worse predicament. Fortunately, things turned. The soldier in charge of the military recreation center will be discharged because it was the end of his enlistment, so they needed a replacement. And guess who was the replacement? Yours truly. Now, there are 3 crucial things you should know about the military recreation center. There was a debt ledger, just a textbook, not the official hard-covered book. If a soldier/superior doesn't have money, they can buy things and pay at a later date. You have to hand them down sometimes. Every month you'd have to meet with the superior in charge of the military recreation centers to balance the books and plan buying supplies. Officially, the balance was perfect. Unofficially, from one soldier to another, there was a €35 deficiency due to screwed up management on their part. Naturally, each new replacement, in this case I, had to deal with this hot potato. I had to either fill the hole out of my own pocket or let the next person deal with it. In order to get your discharge papers, one of the signatures you'll need is from the soldier in charge of the military recreation center that you don't owe anything. Otherwise, they will have to pay first in order to leave. What do you think? Would yours truly pay out of his own pocket for other people's screw-ups or give that hot potato to next poor victim? Neither. I have power now. And to quote someone great, with great power comes great responsibility. I couldn't let that vicious cycle continue. I had to put a stop to it, and I would do it with the help of my beloved bullies. If you want espresso? Great. Enjoy this watered-down concoction at 1 a.m. when you can't order from outside. Thank you for part of my coffee as well. What? 4 of my bullies want coffee and other stuff simultaneously but don't have money? Just freaking great! I'll take my sweet time, tell them a superior had priority, and tend to them when I had time. Enjoy your cold toast with half of the ingredients and your 4 coffees with missing quarter. I put that 1 quarter in a cup and make another cup without using a new coffee capsule or spoons of coffee, until or drink the fifth one. On this note, I had to measure each packet of coffee with a coffee spoon to know how much we'd earn. A packet would be around 40 to 50 spoonfuls of coffee, depending on how full each spoon was. Kid didn't care about your total debt and told me to shut up because I was pestering you? Oh, you dug your own grave, my friend. Enjoy a 15% vindictive increase on the total of your purchase, jerk. We didn't write down what each person purchased, just the name of the person that made the purchase, the date, and the total amount. In the end, my petty machinations not only balanced out the books for real, but my bullies also ended up paying for what I wanted to eat and drink. I'd tell them from time to time their total debts, but they would shrug it off. They didn't suspect anything because they didn't care. If they cared, they would have noticed something amiss. What can I say? It's on them. Also, per the above-mentioned number 3, they had to pay their debt if they wanted my signature or their discharge papers. Good riddance. A little background. I'm 21 and living with my parents as the economy right now is insane, and finding a new place to live without being unable to still buy food and water is near impossible where I live. Now for the actual story. My mother is the type to feel entitled to anything in the house, and I'm living with her, and despite the items having been bought with my own money, it's still under her roof. Back in September of last year, I bought a mini fridge for my room. I buy my own foods and drinks as they are better for my diet than the foods my parents buy. Not to mention my mother always tells me to pay her back for any food of theirs that I eat. So, I just buy my own stuff and get it over with. I hadn't had any issue with anyone trying to take my food or drinks since I got it. So, I never thought of precautions. Until a couple weeks ago, I bought a small cheesecake from the grocery store as I'd been craving it and I had the money to be able to get it. I also got myself a pack of sodas to have here and there. I'd left home to work and didn't think I'd have any worries. After getting home from a long day, I planned to shower and sit down with my treat and a nice movie. But when I looked in the fridge to grab some water, the cheesecake and 4 sodas were missing. I asked my fiancée if she had eaten or drank any of it, and she said she'd taken herself a long shower and napped all day as her day beforehand had been exhausting to say the least. So, I checked the family fridge and what did I find? My missing cheesecake and sodas. I grabbed all of them and placed them back in my fridge before asking around to see who took it. My brother was in school all day and my dad had apparently taken up an extra shift at work. So that left my mother. But when I asked her, she acted offended that I'd accuse her of theft. I decided to leave it alone. It was safely back with me, and I planned to share the treat with my fiancé and drink a soda and just leave it behind me. The next day, my mother bursts into my room screaming at me for stealing from her. I had just woken up and wasn't fully registering what was happening. My fiancé, however, was still asleep and the noise woke her up in a panic. I asked what this was all about and she screamed at me about the cheesecake and sodas, and how it was expensive to get and how dare I take that away. She was planning to eat it that night with my dad and watch movies with him as it was his first few days off in a week. Instead of being angry, I actually started laughing. This wasn't the first time she'd accused me of stealing from her after she took from me. This did not go over well with mother, and she screeched again about giving it back. I laughed harder and had to catch my breath. I told her about them. We had eaten the cheesecake the night prior, and I'm keeping my sodas. She screamed that I better pay her back for the things that I stole from her, and that next time she buys things, she's keeping count of exactly how much she has, so she knows when I steal again. I then stood up and opened my bag, where I had the receipt from when I bought the items. I shoved it in her face, and I told her I bought them as a little treat for myself for working so much and that she wasn't getting any of it. And then I had the best idea. I told her I was going to get another cheesecake because I had some cash that could pay for it, and she wasn't getting any of that one either. Then I turned to my fiancée and told her to grab my phone and see how much a fridge lock would cost. My mother turned me around forcefully and slapped me for trying to put a lock on my fridge, and I don't have permission. So I reminded her that whether it was her house or not, it was my fridge. I paid for it and I can lock it if I want. My fiancé told me I could get a fridge lock online for cheap and it will be delivered in 2 days. So I ordered it right in front of my mother and then told her since I didn't have to work for a couple days, I'd be keeping an eye on all of my things. She stormed out of the room in a fit of rage and screeched to my dad about what a disrespectful daughter I am and how dare I speak to her this way. I laughed about it pretty much every day since then, and when a lock came in, I put it in my fridge immediately. Everywhere I go, whether I'm going to work or even to the bathroom, the keys go with me. Unless my fiancé is staying home, in which case she keeps the keys. Nice try, Mom. Edit. For all of you telling me to get over myself and move out, I actually cannot. A one-bedroom apartment around anywhere in my state is about $1,500 a month. Not including bills and expenses including my medical bills, as unfortunately I have a good number of medical issues that need attention. That adds up roughly to about $2,500 a month, if not more. And my fiancé and I cannot afford that along with food. I'm stuck here until I'm finished with my degree and can get a job offer. Hi Reddit, I've got one gem of a story that my grandfather told me about his hometown after he came home from the World War II. It has to do with a tree farmer, a corrupt mayor, and over 20 homes getting bulldozed. Enjoy. At the end of World War II, thousands of troops were heading home, starting new families, and wanted to move out of the city. There was a major housing boom all around the county. People couldn't move out of the cities fast enough, and developers could not build homes fast enough. There was a ton of money to be made in the construction business, which led to some underhanded building practices. One such practice was starting construction before the land acquisition was finalized. Enter my grandfather. After serving as a pilot during the war, he came home to a very different town. When my grandfather went off to fight in 1942, the town that he described leaving was tired and worn down. But to his amazement, the town he saw stepping off the train in 1948 was anything but. Newly paved roads, a traffic light, and new homes that just went on and on. He actually got lost on his way back to the family farm due to the new main town road being rerouted while he was away. But what took him by surprise the most was a new development being built on his childhood friend John's tree farm. This was surprising to him, mainly because he knew how much the farm meant to John and his family. The farm went back at least 2 generations, but my grandfather just guessed that the developer made John's family an offer too good to refuse. However, that thought was shot down later that evening during his welcome home dinner back home. It was my great-grandmother who tipped him off that something was off. He couldn't recall exactly what she said, but it was something along the lines of, "Oh, I just wish John was still alive to be here." My grandfather nearly choked, not because of the news, but because John was not dead. He was still in Hawaii. My grandfather had gotten a postcard from him 4 days before. Turns out, while John was off in the Navy fighting in the Pacific Theater, John's dad had suffered a stroke and passed away, and his mother passed away less than a week later from a broken heart. More than likely, John was never informed of their passing, and now 20+ homes were being built on their land. My grandfather about ran out of the house, jumped in his father's Model T, and raced down into town to send one bombshell of a telegraph to John in Hawaii. "John, your folks passed. Farm now being built on. Come quick." My grandfather never got a response back. He figures that John must have fainted from shock, then jumped up and ran to the Navy base to get on the first boat home. Because he was back home in less than 4 days, and he was mad. According to my grandfather, when he burst through the doors of the mayor's office, everyone in the room looked like they were about to drop dead. The poor desk clerk was fumbling over his words, trying to talk to John. Then the mayor came out of his office to see what all the commotion was about, and as soon as he saw John, he went white as a sheet, then ran back into his office and locked the door. Getting nowhere at the mayor's office, John went to the next town over and hired a lawyer. What followed was a 7-year court case that ended in the mayor being sentenced to 8 years in jail and a developer going bankrupt. Turns out that after John's parents passed away, John wasn't able to be contacted for some reason. I was just assumed dead. So when an outstate developer wanted to build homes in the area, the mayor just permitted them to start building on John's farm for a hefty kickback, of course. Also, because of John's lawsuit, the developer couldn't finish the pre-sold homes, which ended up in more lawsuits. In the end, the mayor and the developer and the town ended up having to pay John close to $45,000 total, which is over $752,000 today. And then the farm had to be returned to its prior condition. To say John was happy would be a vast understatement. Today, John's tree farm is a nature reserve, and the story of the corrupted mayor is all but forgotten except for by a few locals. John passed away in 1999, and my grandfather has been back to his hometown a few times to visit his grave and to check on the old tree farm. Pretty good story from work this morning where I got to one-up this guy. So I'll start by saying I work for my dad at his store. I work the front counter and interact with most people/customers. Also, I look a lot more like my mom. My dad runs a separate business as well, but anybody who needs to talk to him for either business can usually find him in the office here. So this guy shows up this morning looking pretty ruffled and asks if my dad was here. I replied, "You just missed him. He's out for the morning doing a couple things." He was very displeased by this information and he was acting very loud and unprofessional. He started looking around the store and eventually came back to the front counter with a piece of equipment that he wanted to trade for some work that he apparently did for him before. Keep in mind, I know most of my dad's workers and have never seen this guy before. I told him that I do not do any negotiations while he's not there. I told him that I don't do any negotiations while he's not here, and I can't just let him leave the store with something for free. I told him that normally he probably wouldn't want to take that route, but he was welcome to discuss it with him once he's back. He looked at me and replied, "You're making a big mistake here, and you must not know him very well, because he would do this for me and blah blah blah." I just looked at him and replied, "I actually do know him quite well, seeing as he's my father." I told him that he could either leave or wait for my father to get back. He kinda looked up at me and was pretty speechless. I could tell that he felt stupid and regretted his comments. He ended up waiting around in his truck for my dad to show up, and guess what? He wasn't gonna do a trade. It's almost like I know my boss well. Apparently the guy just worked like 2 days for him and then quit. Plus the thing he wanted was way more expensive than what he was owed. Side note, the pay wasn't made yet because we are bi-weekly. I swear some of the people around here are nuts. But a pity "don't you know who I am" moment made my day.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.